What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 743, the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk Hot Tags podcast of the week. We're going to be breaking down everything that happened in the world of pro wrestling over the past few days, including the TV recap and some injuries, unfortunately, and some stuff changing about WrestleMania and so on and so forth. Title changes and tag team splitting and blah, blah, blah. All the blahs. I'm Tony Mango. I am blah myself. Joining me as always are Callum Wiggins.
Blah, blah, blah.
And Rob D. Freeze.
Blah, blah.
Blah. So if you have any blahs to say about blahs or blah, blah, yada, yada, in the comments below. And tell us what you think about all the topics that we're talking about here. Keep in mind, too, that if you are popping up on YouTube to do that, hit the like button, subscribe, share, hype, ring that notification bell, get your email alert set up for the post show, which should be immediately following the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view tomorrow. It is currently listed as being a post show for their end at 10 o'clock, although the show actually starts at 7. And I do not think that they're going to do 2 Elimination Chamber matches and 2 title matches over the span of 3 hours. I got a feeling that they're 10:30, closer to 11. I think that's what we're probably at. So in WWE typical fashion, I think that they have that 10 o'clock slot as just a tentative thing. But that way, when you have your email alerts, you'll know exactly when I go live, because it's usually about like 5-10 minutes or so after the pay-per-view ends. So keep that in mind too, and make sure that you also click on the join button or the Patreon. Same thing. We're doing both. I'm not going to stop you from doing both, but it's the same stuff on one end as the other end, and even $1 a month is greatly appreciated. The Darkcast tier, of course, is only on those different options. Pick Your Poison is a part of that too, if you ever want to directly sponsor something. And if you want merchandise, Redbubble and TeePublic is where you can pick that up. But if you're interested in just chatting with everybody else and hanging out on a regular basis, the Discord server is the best place to do that. I don't even remember the last time that I clicked on the Facebook group, because more and more people just stopped using Facebook, and I don't blame them. And it's been well over a year, I think, since I even clicked on that thing. So I do everything over on Discord now. And if you want to take part in any kind of discussions about things, like for instance, I've been trying to figure out what we're going to do for the Smark Madness tournament. Currently, I've got it down as I might do who is AJ Styles' greatest opponent, or like best rival, or whatever I want to phrase it like that. But I'm open to other suggestions. So that's a great place for you to just like toss out random stuff. We had a random fantasy booking thing earlier today, for instance. So keep all that in mind. And of course, let us know what you think about these topics we're going to get into now. So let's just start getting into it. I have no organization. I didn't bother with that for some reason. So I think I'm going to start off with the furthest back thing that I can come up with, and that's probably Monday Night Raw, looking at this list of things. So one of the topics coming out of Monday Night Raw was that they were going to do this tribute to AJ Styles, and the show sort of like danced around it a little bit here and there, and eventually came back around to it for the like grand finale of the night of a promo segment where Styles officially did retire. He put his gloves down in the ring. Wanted to do that in Atlanta just because he's, from that area and everything. And The Undertaker came out, among other people, and announced that he is going to be inducted into the class of 2026 for the WWE Hall of Fame. So that puts right now the Hall of Fame class at Stephanie McMahon and AJ Styles, with no discussion about who is like, okay, and they're going to be inducted by so-and-so, because that seems like that's a thing that WWE is not really interested in announcing ahead of time these past couple of years. I don't know exactly why, but they used to, be like, hey, Mick Foley is going to be inducted by so-and-so, and Booker T is going to be inducted by so-and-so, whatever. Instead, they just like either don't care, or they think that everybody else doesn't care, or they keep running into scheduling issues and have to avoid announcing things or something. But Styles in the Hall of Fame, I don't think that there's any debate about whether or not he should be in there whatsoever, but I do think that there is worth 2 different discussions here. Number 1, who headlines between those two? And number 2, who inducts AJ Styles?
John Cena does, and
he headlines?
No, well, he should, but I think they're giving it
Yeah.
they're giving them some space. But John Cena will probably induct AJ Styles. If they don't get John because they just want him to be away from Mania season, which would be stupid, but if that's what they wanted, perhaps Kurt Angle, perhaps Abyss. You got a few names you can play around with now for AJ Styles. Given the choice between the two of them, I think AJ would headline. I think Stephanie feels like an opener. I don't know if they do that at the Hall of Fame really, but like the opener main event kind of thing. How they do on the Plug Mania.
I forget who opened last year, but if I remember correctly, the last year or the year before, it was kind of booked, like a book-ended kind of thing.
Yeah, so I think it'll be that because I perhaps I'm giving them too much credit, as I'm known for doing, but I think Stephanie's self-aware enough to go, people don't really want to hear from me.
I think you give her too much credit, considering the fact that she's got her own podcast series and all this other stuff as well. I think
I'm talking about staying awake until 3 a.m. to hear from her, like last year with Hunter.
Oh, so she wants to start off early, so people are actually paying attention when she talks, rather than wait until.
Yeah, but I would expect that more than they want to wait for me.
I think that AJ's like John Cena makes sense for AJ Styles to like be his inductor. If not, maybe someone like Frankie Kazarian, if they want to continue with like the TNA partnership thing, just bring him in for that. Yeah, and I mean, I'm kind of more comfortable with the idea of AJ going last because even though Stephanie's longevity and tenure in WWE is longer, I kind of prefer somebody that's been like an actual wrestler to be, in most circumstances, to be the headliner of the Hall of Fame.
I think so too. I think Stephanie might end up opening the show and then Styles ending it. And it all kind of depends a little bit, at least, on who else is a part of this, because obviously if they include some more people that are actually like high up there, then there's a chance that maybe somebody else opens or something. But I feel like it's got to be one of those two at least ending it. And considering the way that they've done the Hall of Fame the past bunch of years, I don't think it's going to be anybody who would be on the same level as either of them. I think it's going to be more so like a mid-card type of person. And then you've got like your moment of the year thing that you can throw some legends in there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to like headline or anything either. And you got your legacy award stuff. That'll be like a quick video package and whatever. But, I can't think of anybody else that I would imagine is going to induct Styles other than Cena, and not because of it being like Cena's the most, the most tied to AJ Styles, but more so WWE wouldn't be interested in a lot of these people. Like Abyss was brought up, and they've shown him one time, and that quick thing this week is like the only time that they've ever done anything to allude to Abyss, I think. I don't feel like they have a sort of respect for Park that way. I think that he's kind of just, he's a guy in the back, and we've seen so many people that are worthy of Hall of Fame inductions and kind of some spotlights that are just producers and that they don't even like pay any attention to. Like, Helms will come out and they won't even be like, oh, and, Gregory Helms is there, like, whatever. So I think that they are in a spot where they wouldn't prioritize any kind of TNA people, that it's basically like, hey, Styles has this connection with John Cena that gets a big name on the show. And if Styles were to request somebody else, then maybe they would do something else. But I do think it's Cena or rather than somebody or Cena. But we don't know exactly when the Hall of Fame is happening either, because now that they have switched up some stuff for the WrestleMania weekend, they could switch a couple other things up too. And that's another topic to get into, is that they don't have NXT Stand and Deliver happening on the Hall of Fame weekend anymore. And I'm just gonna put it out there. I knew something was up with this. I had a feeling for a while that they were in a weird spot with these pay-per-views on NXT, and so far what's been announced has been Vengeance Day is happening at the Performance Center. And if I am correct in the way that they've advertised this, they haven't even advertised where you can see it too. And I don't think that they had put that out there for Stand and Deliver either, about exactly like, tune in on Netflix or whatever it might be. I'm going to try to double check to see if that's listed anywhere else, but I don't see it, at least on the main thing that I had been looking at. But Stand and Deliver is going to be separate from WrestleMania. It's going to be Saturday, April 4th. So 2 weekends prior to Mania. And yeah, the website post about it and everything, it says where you can buy the tickets. It says that when the tickets go on sale, it advertises some people that are potentially going to be there, like Myles Borne and Izzy Dame and JC Jane and Joe Hendry. Essentially just your champions outside of the tag champs. And doesn't say anything on the graphic or whatever about where you can watch this. So I still think that they are in a spot where they're trying to figure out some negotiations of that. And I'm not all that surprised that Stand and Deliver is not at WrestleMania anymore. But that also means that they are moving up the WrestleMania time frame. It's listed as 2:30 start time now, which I am assuming 2:30 means we're starting to let people come into the arena, and 3:00 is when the pre-show starts. But yeah, they haven't specified 100% of that either. I'm all in favor of basically all of this. Mania week is fucking tough. And from a perspective of somebody who works in this whole field, and, Rob, you're well aware of this, it's different than being a fan. When you're a fan and you're watching and you can choose whether or not you want to watch anything in particular, like you might just be like, yeah, I'll check the Hall of Fame out tomorrow during the pre-show of the WrestleMania thing. You can do that, and then you can skip through all the nonsense or whatever. But if you have to watch the shows, you do have to watch, on top of any kind of like Ring of Honor thing that might be thrown out there, or some kind of like TNA thing or whatever it might be. You got to watch the 3-hour episode of SmackDown. You got to watch the Hall of Fame, which goes however long. And then you got to make sure that you're up early enough for the pre-show for the NXT pay-per-view, go through the whole pay-per-view of that, then somehow try to cram in their podcast potentially before the pre-show WrestleMania starts. Then you do all of WrestleMania. Then the next day you do all of WrestleMania again. And then you got Monday Night Raw, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, and it just continues and continues. I love the idea about getting a little bit of a break from that and just having, let me sit down at 2:30 and be like, all right, I'm getting locked in at 3 to start with the pre-show. Because at least with last year's WrestleMania, even the pre-show had those big announcements like the AAA thing. And then Mania gets done a little bit earlier. Hell yeah. I can still have a little bit of a night. That's amazing. All things considered, what do you guys think about this whole idea? Yeah.
I agree with you in the sense that I've been there, and yeah, covering WrestleMania weekend is a bitch. But it's also largely, at least the WWE things are now contained to just the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, as opposed to everything. You know what I mean? I'm not as much in favor of Stand and Deliver being on its own, simply because I think it kind of screws the NXT people out of a moment. And you can say that that's bullshit, but like, Stand and Deliver will clearly be less of a big deal because it won't be a part of Mania Week. You know what I mean? It's going to be in St. Louis. It's going to be its own thing. And I think that sucks because, hey, maybe somebody has a banger match on Mania weekend and that sets the stage for them to have a great year. Now it's its own thing. And I don't know if that's going to be as good for the NXT superstars.
I do agree with you on that end. It does take that away from Mania and feeling special if it's just 2 weeks prior, not even like the week prior, or to make that like the Tuesday as like, I mean, that not that would necessarily be as big of a deal anyway, but like if the Tuesday episode of NXT was called Stand and Deliver, then you could even try to argue at that point that it's like, well, it's Mania week. And if you did it in front of a crowd and whatever, you could kind of get away with NXT Stand and Deliver being that Tuesday. But that Tuesday will just be a regular episode of NXT then, you would assume. And it does sort of diminish it. I agree with you on that, friend.
You know, in terms of like Mania starting earlier, yes, that's good, but also, I say it every year, folks, they tricked you into 2 really long shows for no reason because everybody complained about the one really long show for no reason. And I don't know, I feel like they're getting more airtime and more time for less content, and it's very strange to me as a viewer to watch it happen because you're like, you have more time than ever, and you're somehow doing way less than you were even doing 3 years ago, let alone 10 or 15. You know, like Mania is probably going to be like 40% ads and not a lot of extra people getting a lot of in-ring time, which sucks.
Obviously, I'm never going to be a fan of the incessant ads. Any thoughts on this whole switch up, Callum, about like Mandy being early and Stand and Deliver and whatnot?
Or to be largely invested in something which you have no intention of watching. So, like, my WrestleMania weekend experience will be me checking my phone the day after each show to see what gifts have come out of something that went wrong or something that was like a cool moment, and that'll be my WrestleMania weekend over. So, no, I don't really. It doesn't really matter to me if it happens earlier, because even earlier for me is still really late. So even if I had to watch it, it would still be a pain in the arse. And in terms of the Stand and Deliver, I agree with Rob's point about it being disappointing for the NXT superstars to not be like involved in some capacity in the whole WrestleMania weekend, and just having some, I guess, live vicariously through that show rather than being on the main card, and maybe look towards that as their inspiration for future. But then that would also involve me caring about NXT. So
I think that the downside of moving that away from Mania is maybe, and I don't know, like, it was just, I'm not putting this out as like, oh, this is a definitive sign, but like, they've moved a lot of people lately, and they've been making some changes about, you know, putting Speed title on there. We still don't have that Heritage Cup, by the way, for anybody that's curious. That's just not mentioned at all, and it's still on the website, which is the whole weird thing. But, you know, they're switching people up with Evolve, and Evolve is taking over in a different way of being, like, it's very firmly, Evolve is the step to NXT, and then LFG. I don't know when LFG season 3 is coming out, but, you know, they filmed something for LFG season 3. So I feel like there is sort of a divide coming, whether it's an inevitable subconscious thing that's happening or it's a conscious effort to start heading in this direction. NXT is becoming a little bit more of like a separate entity from the main roster, and it's a little strange that they switched it when it came to the logos for everything. For a while there, everything was like, it's WWE Vengeance Day. We're not even going to have NXT on the actual logo, and we're going to refer to it as WWE Vengeance Day or WWE Roadblock or whatever. And then they went back to it being NXT. And now all of the logos are NXT specific. So I think that they're trying to separate things a little bit more. And by taking it out of Mania weekend, that downgrades NXT, but it also separates it in whatever way that they would want to if they are having that as like a conscious thing. So I don't know. It's something to just, you know, tinfoil hat about. And maybe we're past that era of NXT being lumped in as like the third brand going forward. I could be totally wrong, and it could just be a one-time thing too.
It's very clear to me they're doing another major change. It's not as stark as 2.0, where it was just like, hey, guess what? Everything you knew about this brand, fucking dead. But it's very clear that like they are in a big transition period. Who knows? I mean, obviously, Ava leaving was her own thing, but that's also like a part of it. Like, you've seen a lot of major stars leave. The GM of, this most recent era of NXT just left the company. It's just another transition phase, and I think it's one that's more in line with potentially. Are we gonna hot shot to a super indie? You got you got this indie tag team. Vanity Project is now, a top team in NXT, and perhaps Powerhouse Hobbs coming in. Maybe they're looking to go super indie again and taking a slow road there. Maybe they're looking to make it completely developmental again. But it's clear to me that there's a major change at NXT.
And this also could just be a one-time thing. But
it won't be a one-time thing. And everybody keeps saying that. Like the original report from Mike Johnson of PWI was like, we were cautioned that this is a one-time thing. No, it isn't. Next year's in Saudi.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to was another tinfoil hat type thing. Almost every time that WWE does a one-time thing, they leave it open that it is not going to be a one-time thing. And if it works, they continue to do it. Look at the 2-night WrestleMania. That was a part of, hey, look, weird situation going on here. Mania is supposed to be a one-night show, but we got this lockdown and we're doing this in front of nobody, so let's just split it up in 2 nights, and then maybe we can like milk that a little bit and whatever, then let's see what happens. Then it became, let's say SummerSlam could be a 2-night thing, whatever. Hey, what if we do a separate thing here where we move Money in the Bank to a different spot, or what if we whatever. I think that with Mania being Saudi next year, they're going to not want to ship people over because that is very expensive to be like paying for everybody's travel and to ship all the equipment and to do all that stuff. They're making a fuck ton of money from the Saudi stuff, and they're for damn sure going to be making a fuck ton of money when it comes to WrestleMania. But is Saudi Arabia interested in paying that much extra to have an NXT show? They don't seem like they're particularly in love with NXT. They seem like they are very much in that, like, we wish we could have the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era of the main roster more than anything else. And when people from NXT come out to, around Rumble or whatever it might be, they don't necessarily get the best reactions. So I think with Stand and Deliver being separate this year, it's a little bit of a combination of a couple things, but I think it's also some really poor planning of their original New Orleans plan and then shifting it to Las Vegas. And then they probably couldn't separate another venue. And then let's just do it a different time. It'll be so much easier and it's less of a headache and blah, blah. But I also think it's a little bit of a test run of like, if we set that up ahead of time as not being a part of Mania weekend, then we don't have to do that for Saudi. It's not going to be assumed. We'll do the Hall of Fame. Maybe. They might not even do the Hall of Fame next year in Saudi. I would assume that they would, just from the people that are going to be, in the area and stuff. But Hall of Fame in Saudi.
Saudi wants that. Like, that's the whole.
That's like part of the pageantry of the whole thing.
You get legends and they're like, you get maybe John Cena goes in Saudi. I think you suggested that to me.
I mean, he could. I would hope that he wouldn't. But I don't
want that.
The amount of fuckery that could happen, you never really know. But I think that this is the test run at least for next year, and then if it sticks, I don't think that we're seeing NXT Stand Deliver be the same weekend anymore. But I do think that they might add something else, and I don't know what that necessarily could be, but it wouldn't shock me if we didn't get something like a spontaneous AAA show on this weekend. Just something smaller in like a smaller venue and being like, yeah, we don't have anything for Thursday. So on Thursday, we're going to do AAA Worlds Collide or, something. I don't know. There's still a little bit of time, but the idea of them adding something to it is a little bit harder to believe than having taken this away. And if you were planning on seeing all this and spending $30,000 for tickets for different things like that, maybe you're disappointed that you're not getting Stand and Deliver as well. But then again, you bought the package without it being a part of the package deal, and that seemed like it was a pretty obvious indicator that it wasn't going to be Stand and Deliver anyway. So can't blame anybody but yourself when it comes to that front.
I mean, I will say, like, you had that foresight, but you also had that foresight because you're just inherently cynical right now. The reason I still thought it was happening was because Johnson kept saying, "Nope, it's planned for the weekend of Mania," which is, they like Johnson, so I assumed that everything was a go. But I guess they decided, let's make Mania week a little less. So that's overall a good thing for everybody involved. But I'm a little worried about Mania as a whole this year. And I'm kind of glad I don't have to follow it as closely as I have been in the past decade.
It's a mess for Mania this year. One of those things that's happening is that Brock Lesnar was out on Monday Night Raw with Paul Heyman. Just, hey, it's just going to be them together again. Must be a matter of like, well, Brock's leaving soon, so he just wants Paul Heyman by his side, and fuck it. Let's just continue.
Given what's happening to the Vision, that's the best thing you can do for Heyman right now.
Probably, yeah. But he cut a promo on Lesnar's behalf, and the gist of it is, let's do an open challenge. Lesnar's going to be here for multiple weeks, but nobody's going to answer the open challenge because nobody has the balls to answer the open challenge. So I look at this in a couple different directions. One being, WWE doesn't know what they fucking want to do. So they have an open challenge because they're giving themselves several weeks to figure it out. As if there's multiple options that really need to be weighed in on. Because it's like, we all want fucking Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar. Just do Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar, motherfuckers. Don't do the thing where you just go, yeah, but how about if we say that we could save that for the future and then we don't do it and we'll do LA Knight instead? How about we do that? It's not going to be a better option. So just do that. Or, maybe you go in the good third direction, but I still think that that's SummerSlam. It's going to be a babyface or at least a tweener like Obafemi. And then what do you do in the next couple weeks? Well, the worst case scenario, and this could very well happen. This is the cynical side of me pointing this out just because I don't hope I'm right, but it's a possibility to keep in mind. Worst case scenario is Brock Lesnar's on these next 4 episodes or whatever, and Paul Heyman comes out with him and says, we want to remind you that there's an open challenge, but nobody has the balls to do it. And then they leave over and over and over again until somebody comes out. Best case scenario, they've settled on somebody already, and it's, an Obafemi. And then over the course of these next couple episodes, maybe there's interactions with people, maybe a Kit Wilson comes out and is like, I don't think you should have an open challenge. That's, indicative of toxic masculinity, and gets an F5. Or Brock is backstage with somebody and he picks a fight with somebody and it's like, do you want to answer the open challenge? And then he fucks him up. And then it's like, I didn't think so. And then eventually a guy like an Obafemi stands up and it's just like, okay, well, do that to me, motherfucker. But I think of this as more of just, there is no story because they do not want to write a story. They don't want to figure out a story. And the entire story is, We will tell you that there will be a match, and you fill in the blanks yourselves for the next week, every single week until we actually have the plan.
Now, I told you when I heard about this, that's what they should have done with Brock years ago. Back when people wanted to see Brock. I think that would have been a great piggyback off of the streak ending instead of holding the WWE title hostage, because the whole point of the streak became, as Paul Heyman said on Monday, there were two main events. One was the streak, the other one was the title match. It's weird to me that it took them 12 years to go, let's just put Brock in the streak position. But with this roster today, I think they made a mistake because they just made people go, oh, and if it's not Obafemi or Gunther, and it's just like LA Knight's going to talk about how he's got the Kavorka to answer the challenge, I don't know if people are going to care. But on the whole, as an idea, this works in terms of how to use Brock Lesnar. Do I think it's going to be great? No, because it's Brock Lesnar in 2026, first of all. It's probably a short match with LA Knight. And it just sort of is, it's weird, but I kind of understand why they're just pairing him with Heyman again. Because it's like, Heyman's fucked. Because the vision's fucked. Might as well pair Heyman with Lesnar and use him as like a ringer in case you need a main event for Paul Heyman. Because Paul Heyman, as we've discussed, is the main character of WWE for the last 12 months.
Last couple of years.
Well, I would at least say, at least with the Bloodline storyline, he was background to Roman.
Yeah.
Like the last 12 months have literally been Paul Heyman is the Oracle and he's so great. And to watch all his guys get injured, unfortunately.
Can't see that coming, Kenny, right?
Fortunately not.
I just wish that they would do something, for WrestleMania that's very, very much being written as we don't have a plan. Can we just fucking get through it for every single feud that's being set up for the most part? There's only a few things that are actually like a story is unfolding for. If you look at like CM Punk and Roman Reigns, and yeah, there's technically the option of Finn Balor being in there. By the way, Dane, fully disagree. I don't understand how you think that Finn Balor is winning that championship. There's like, it seems like to me, Finn Balor is going to lose that, and then he's going to go on to continue to have his issues with Dominic Mysterio. Then it's going to be Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio. That's more of a story. Like, that's heading in a direction that's telling. It's not the best story in the world, but it's telling a story. Roman and Punk is just, we had the match last year and we're two big names and I don't like you. That's the whole story. And then they're just going to cut the same promos each week about like, fuck you, you don't respect me the way that you should, and I'm going to beat you. Fuck you. I don't like you. I don't like you either. They already did that. And they've done it like 3 other times. But on this run.
But
so
they haven't though. Like you keep saying that, but they haven't. Last year was literally all about Seth Rollins being like, I hate this one and that one. And they were kind of like, all right, fuck it. We're going to get Seth Rollins. The whole thing being like, maybe we'll get around to each other, but this fucker's in the middle. And this year they're going to do also 12 years too late. The, hey, fuck you. You went on a podcast and ruined my career. Like, I think that's the best thing they've got going forward. And I think that's the only reason why it's the one thing they locked in.
I think that they only locked that in because it's 2 of their big names and that's it. I don't think that they cared whatsoever about any kind of like story element. I think it was just marquee. Punk Reigns is better than something else, but we could also do Punk Cody or we could do Cody Reigns, and they didn't care whatsoever as far as like why or how. It was just like, what's the pairing of those big names? And then they went, Punk Roman? Cool. We have to write it. That kind of thing. Because look at Stephanie Vaquer and Liv Morgan. That story is dog shit.
Yeah, the women's side in general kind of sucks here.
It's fucking terrible.
Because and God, what I'm about to say is probably going to sound harsh, but I think it's making more of a case of like, you need to go back to the mat with what you're doing with these women, and like, if you're going to present them, if like they're still on par with the other side of the table, you should probably start presenting them like heavy hitters again. And right now they're not doing that, at least to me, in the women's division.
I think that they think if they say it, it's true, as opposed to that they don't have to show it. And it's just a matter of, but they're the champions and you know that they are. So you just fill in the blanks yourself, essentially.
Yeah, I think it's less that. And I think they're letting the audience do the heavy lifting. Because most of the audience now is just like, well, it is a main event because
that's what I'm saying. That's the same thing I'm saying.
But you're putting that on the company. I'm putting that more on the fans. I think like they just accept it, and that sucks because I want to go back to when it was like, these women should absolutely headline over anything the men are doing, as opposed to just being like, it's a main event because she won the Royal Rumble, even though it's going on like third on the card. Shut up, like.
I think that they look at it as like, Rhea Ripley's such a big star. Doesn't that make the tag team title match that we have so awesome? Because you guys love Rhea Ripley. And Io is so great. She's in there too. Isn't that just by default awesome? And aren't Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss and so on and so forth, aren't they just great? So you guys know the value here. We don't have to show you the value. We don't have to tell you the value. We don't have to give you the value. It's inherently just baked in because they're talented. And then the same when it comes to like Liv Morgan and Stephanie Vaquer. You like Stephanie Vaquer, you like Liv Morgan, done. Oh, we have to write stuff? Well, I mean, how about you just accept it and we don't write it? How about that? And then it's like, the segment on Raw was Liv Morgan spends 4 weeks or whatever it was, being like, I don't want to pick who I'm fighting at WrestleMania. I'm only really going to interact with Stephanie Vaquer. I'm going to have some quick little side glance things with Jade, but Jade is effectively going to completely ignore me. And I am going to only really be like hovering around Jade in the most minimal capacity. I'm going to get so quote unquote deeply personal with Stephanie Vaquer in promos that if you don't speak Spanish, we're not going to tell you what it was. And even if you do, and you get the translation or whatever, it's not really going to be saying all that much, and it's not going to really mean much, but we'll just act like it has a big reaction, because if Liv Morgan cries over something, you're going to be more invested that she just cried than what she cried about. And then the next week she can come out and she can just be like, let me cut a generic babyface promo, and then surprise, I'm not a babyface, which nobody thought would be the case anyway. And I'm going to go after the person that I've been interacting with the most. Okay. If you got rid of everything that they've done since Royal Rumble and you made it just the Raw after WrestleMania, or after Raw after Royal Rumble, Jade and Stephanie were in the ring and Liv Morgan said, I could pick you or I could pick you. I'm going to hit Stephanie in the head with a microphone and go after her. It's exactly the same scenario. Nothing changes. And then people will make the arguments, especially like the Liv Morgan stands. But it's so much more personal now because she cried. Why did she cry? Because she insulted her. Did she? She said, I've done a lot. And then Liv Morgan said, yeah, you have. fuck me, this is a terrible story. And
So
then
is
Jade
the
just
idea-
stands there, and Jade's like, oh, okay, and then leaves.
So is the idea of the storyline supposed to be Stephanie is saying, I've been here for a cup of coffee and I've done all this shit and you've done nothing?
No.
Okay. I was just trying to make sense of that.
No, the story is you're not giving me enough respect because I've gone through a lot to get to the point where I'm champion. And Liv says, yes, you indeed have. You've struggled a lot. I agree. Fuck you, though. I want that belt. And then somewhere in the mix, Dom is there. And there was like a 1 week thing of like, you probably want Dom, don't you? And then Stephanie being like, nope. So that's the story. The story is,
okay.
I don't want your boyfriend. I just want to retain my title because I'm a fighting champion. And Liv Morgan being like, oh man, I respect the hell out of you, even though I'm a villain. And I guess we should just have a match.
So I want to do that. I can tie up all my feelings just by reading this quick quote from AJ Styles, which was, he said after his full retirement, WrestleMania, I'm sorry to say, used to be the most prestigious PLE, but to me, it's kind of lost its luster a little bit.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Yep. It's hey, WrestleMania is big, you know it's big, so then we don't have to worry about it anymore. You know, when you consider who you associate with and what the, you know, here's my anti-MAGA bit for this episode. When you've got an administration that goes, oh, we're the best, and you go, yeah, prove any of it at all in any capacity. Also, we have proof of the opposite, and they go, we're the best though. That's WrestleMania. That's WWE. It's them just hyperbolizing and saying, this is great because we say it's great. And if you don't agree, even if you have facts and proof and can call us out on any of that, well, I don't fucking like you.
But they
fucking children.
But they continue to win. Congratulations.
Some fucking how. Which, by the way, Paramount, fuck you. I really don't want my Batman and Superman to be pro ice and shit. So I hope that Elson finds his way to the same hellscape as all the other people in here and eats a 8mm. One of these days, these are going to be used in court, right? Anyway, if you didn't think that WrestleMania was fucked, Bronson Reed got injured.
So, again, not watching Raw, I get a message from Tony. Reed just tore his bicep. It's like, holy shit, this Vision thing is the most snake-bitten storyline I've ever seen from a main event perspective. Not from like it's poorly booked, just like domino effect of this shit is snake bitten. You came out on TV and said Rollins is the main event of WrestleMania 42 the night after WrestleMania 41, and they said, nope. Braun Breaker's the star we're making. Hey, guess what? He might not make Mania because he's dealing with a hernia. But we got Bronson Reed as he's hurt too. The Vision went from this interesting thing where Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker had the chance to maybe do a New Age evolution to Paul Heyman is managing what is effectively a tag team of Austin Theory and Logan Paul. And I could not have seen that coming last year.
Yeah, this is not good. Obviously, he was planned to be a part of Elimination Chamber, and then we talked about this on the Elimination Chamber preview. They had to switch over to Jey Uso winning the match instead, and that sucks because Jey Uso being a part of that's just, changes the whole dynamic. And not that Bronson Reed was ever going to really win that anyway, and Jey Uso's not going to win it either, but hey, whatever. But clearly Bronson Reed was supposed to be doing something at WrestleMania, and that's not going to happen because he is going to be out well enough long past that point. So whatever that plan was, and they didn't set up anything, at least as far as what I could tell. Nothing seemed like it was like, okay, well, Bronson Reed is going to face Royce Keys, or Reed's got this thing that's going on with this Adam Pearce feud, and we can handle things or whatever. And then we got a specific 6-man tag where it's going to be Reed and Logan Paul and Austin Theory against these 3 people, because they're just sort of throwing people around. Like sometimes Penta's involved in that, sometimes he's not. Sometimes it's LA Knight with the Usos, and sometimes it's LA Knight being with Dragon Lee or whatever the fuck. Well, Dragon Lee's mostly involved in Gunther, but like they're sort of just like flying some random names out there each particular week. So I don't think that they had something in mind for Bronson Reed that was locked in that would be a big deal. Like, man, that was going to be our Bronson Reed versus Bad Bunny match or whatever the fuck. But he was supposed to be part of it in some way. So that sucks. And now they have to switch that up. And I would be very curious to find out what the original plans were for WrestleMania, at least as far as back like Survivor Series, if not last year. Like, Rollins is going to be the main event of WrestleMania. What did you plan? Sure as hell's not happening. And now we can't even get the backup plan of if Seth Rollins is ready to go and he can't fight Braun Breaker, then, well, maybe he can fight Bronson Reed. Can't do that anymore. So the Masked Man seems to be an angle that's put on hold as well. It wouldn't shock me if they just don't come back to that either.
Well,
this is a mess.
There are still members of the Vision to attack. It's just a matter of how do you pivot to something. I mean, you could do Rollins, Logan Paul. We did that at Mania already, but like you could. And I'm willing to bet they're still banking on Rollins Breaker. So it's just a matter of whatever this Masked Man thing is has to pivot to either Theory and Logan or just one of the two. And depending on who the reveal is, if it's not Rollins, I think you could salvage it. It just won't be great.
Let's see what else happened on Raw worth talking about. We already talked about the Elimination Chamber qualifiers already with that. Penta and Dominic Mysterio next week for the Intercontinental title. Do not anticipate that belt changing hands. There's a chance it could, but
7th shot at the title.
Something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Mysterious Box is again a thing. Doesn't even seem like they're going to address it on SmackDown tonight because Adam Pearce had said just ship it over to Chicago. So, they could just not. It's a lot easier to tell a story when you don't tell a story, right? And then Javon had his match with Kofi Kingston. That was fun. And that was Monday Night Raw, essentially, because that covers quite a bit. After that was the NXT side of things, and we already mentioned Stand and Deliver has that whole situation going on, but this episode was supposed to be somewhat of a special episode. They didn't give it any kind of classification. It wasn't like Spring Break-In or whatever the hell. I mean, it's not spring right now anyway. I don't know why that went with that one. Gold Rush or whatever it might be. But they treated it like it was some kind of special edition because it was supposed to be in Atlanta, and they started it off with the GM introducing, or the interim GM introducing everything, and 3 titles changed hands and a tag team split up. That was very important. So it started off with the Vanity Project beating DarkState with an upset that was instigated by Tony D'Angelo. So he wants to ruin DarkState and take everything away from them. That makes sense. He starts off with the tag team titles. And I am a big fan of the Vanity Project. They are obviously not, main event type tier caliber guys at this moment, but they're young as all hell, and that's the whole point of developmental. Brad Baylor and Ricky Smokes are fun. Vanity Project's a lot of fun. Jackson Drake is like, is this guy going to be like the next Randy Orton or something? He could be. And I like the idea of switching up the tag titles and making it a little bit more interesting with a new fresh tag team. So thumbs up there. Just to speed run some of the other things and then come back to these points. Keanu Carver beat Sean Legacy. Triple threat match for the WWE Speed title. Elio LeFleur beat Jasper Troy and Eli Knight to win the championship. Lola Vice is going to face Kalani Jordan at Vengeance Day in an NXT Underground match. Zaria turned on Sol Ruca to cost her the NXT Women's Championship match, and ZaRuca is no longer a thing. Paxley had a promo that was very awkwardly cut short with Izzy Dame, and then the Hell beat Blake Monroe for the return of Jada Parker. So we'll come back to this. Ryan Connors beat Cal Dixon, and Myles Borne won the North American title from Ethan Page. So very impactful, shifting kind of episode of NXT. And let's rewind and kind of dissect them a little bit. Vanity Project, any thoughts on that?
They're good. They're, charismatic tag team. I'm surprised you don't usually see heels beat heels, but they had a good reason here. Tony D'Angelo, and again, it feels like that massive shift I was talking about, where it's like, okay, we're going with this young team. We're going with a lot of new everything. So let's see how this works out for NXT.
I'm assuming that you don't really have an opinion about this, Callum, but obviously stop me at any point if you do.
I've never seen them wrestle. I don't even know what their names are. So,
with the Speed title, Jasper Troy's a monster, but I think Elio LeFleur works.
It is not.
I think he works better as a Speed champion type of guy. LeFleur can go out there, flip around for a few minutes, and Troy can move on to something else. Troy can be fighting for the North American title.
Troy, you've got some heavy hitters in the powerhouse department, no pun intended, but one of them being the former powerhouse Ops, that I think you might start to move towards that main event scene. And Troy's one of those I could see.
Straight to main event, not even North American?
No, because I don't really want to see Myles Borne lose it immediately. Like, they spent a while building Myles Borne. So let's see what he can do with the mid-card title.
That's where I think that Borne, it kind of depends on who's going to stick around and, what are they going to do with certain other people and stuff too. I don't think that they're planning on having like some big exodus again after moving as many people as they did, but there is a chance that more people can move up around Mania time. But given the roster that we've got, Borne's actually got a lot of competitors that can be in the ranks to fight him for the North American title. Like, Birthright alone, you got Stax, you got his former tag team partner, Charlie Dempsey, who's like kind of tangentially a part of that. Lexis King is a solid enough one-shot rehashing feud. They already had their story before where he was like, you're not deaf. And all that. Thought it was fucking hilarious the way that they were doing that with the blindfold match and all that shit. But like, let's just say, like, if he feuds with Birthright, he can get 3, if not 4 matches bare minimum out of that. Because he could have a one-off with Lexis King. He could have like a more important thing with Stax. He could have a match with Uriah Connors, who, is going to start working his way up there. If they sign David Finlay, then he could be the next champion, whatever. You got people like the Jasper Troy story, like, maybe Jasper Troy works more in there. You got Keanu Carver is another guy who could potentially win that North American title. I think that they probably wouldn't necessarily switch over Jackson Drake quite yet because he's the Evolve champion, but Jackson Drake is another guy that could be contending for that. If you got the babyface side of things, you got your Tavion Heights, Shiloh Hill, throw in like a Dion Lennox there for like the main event / mid card thing. Same with like Cutler James and such. It's not the best roster that they've ever had, but it's a little healthy when it comes to that kind of side of things. Elio Knight could have a one-off or something, whatever. I like the idea of Troy moving on, and I like the idea of Borne being the champion. I think that even though he just prevented Ethan Page from becoming the longest reigning North American champion, I'm fine with that still being Obafemi, and Page should move on too. Paige should be fighting for the world championship. Paige should be moving up to the main roster, whatever they want to do with him going forward.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that Paige just needs to go up to the main roster.
That would be the ideal, I think. Put him on like SmackDown or something and just let him just be Ethan Page on the main roster. I think he's proven himself at this point.
And this might sound funny, but like The Miz can't be The Miz forever.
Yeah.
Ethan Page can easily slot into that role. He can easily win titles. He's a versatile guy, and I think it's time for him to move up.
I wouldn't even mind them being a tag team for a bit. You know, with The Miz being somebody who's like perpetually looking to latch himself onto somebody. I could see them potentially working out and being like, see, you're more my speed. You and I can get along, kind of a thing.
If I wasn't so sick of that story, because he does it all the time, I would agree with you. But I'm good seeing Miz be like, yeah, this guy's my protege now. I've seen that enough.
I don't think that they should be protege thing. I think it should be more like equals.
Yeah, but that's how it'll come off, because they have to do the thing where they're like, but I'm The Miz and I've been on WWE TV and you haven't.
Well, they love splitting tag teams more than putting them together, and then that's where we get into the ZaRuca split. Obviously, it's been a long time coming. It's not like it's like, whoa, what happened here? Oh my God. But I think we're looking at a scenario where if they don't pull the trigger on this happening already at Vengeance Day, which they very well could, I think Stand and Deliver, you've got a 3-way.
I thought Ruca was supposed to be in and around Chicago for Chamber. I guess she has to get some level of vengeance, but the pay-per-view is only next week, so you can do a quick blow-off from that and then move forward. I think they want Ruca up.
I kind of think Ruca's going to stay. I don't think they're moving her up yet.
It's possible, because I don't know if she had a full heel turn, and that seems to be a requirement in NXT. But
she's definitely not turning heel anytime soon. Zaria's full-blown heel.
Which is what she should have been from minute one.
Pretty much, yeah.
But I think this. I mean, just that's something that I can actually comment on, because I have watched these two and I do like them. I think this is a mistake, because they'd already established them kind of on the main roster. Obviously, they were still in NXT, but they had been appearing on the main roster and had been in tag team matches. So you could have just called them up to the main roster, and this turn would have way more impact if it happened when they were on the main roster after they'd been a tag team for a while. I think it just, we know how little WWE cares about tag teams in general, but the whole thing is that you could have had them win the tag titles and being like an actual established tag team that's holding the titles for a while, and then have them do this turn afterwards, and then you already have two potential big stars for the main roster, as opposed to using this as the kind of a foundation for a NXT feud, which, I think in the past they've done it for like the Johnny Garganos and Tommaso Ciampas, when they could have moved them as a tag team up to the main roster. But the difference here is I think that these two are already ready-made for the main roster, whereas as has been proven by their stints on the main roster, it was never going to get any better for Gargano and Ciampa than NXT. So it was right for them to do that feud there. Whereas this one, I think, it feels just too premature to make this an NXT feud when it should be a main roster feud instead.
I wouldn't have been opposed to that at all. Zaria is just as good as anybody else that's on the main roster. Sol Ruca, arguably one of the best women that's in the company, including top talent. Like, I'd put Sol Ruca over, I would say, a good 90% of the roster at the very least. And, if they would have brought them back up and it would have just been that they're in the tag team division. I think that the reason why they didn't is probably because they thought that the tag division was already stacked as it was with group of people that they've got, like the Kabuki Warriors and, you know, the Irresistible Forces and whatnot. But they also could just be thinking, well, you don't want to put everybody on the main roster yet, and we think that this could be a big draw for the NXT crowd because they're, you know, they're still big names in NXT and all. But I don't think JC Jane is leaving Stand and Deliver as champion. And I could see JC being brought up before Zaria or Sol Ruca. At the very least, Sol Ruca would have a chance more than Zaria. Zaria is probably winning this championship and then going forward, I think. But I don't think she's winning it next week by any means. It could happen. You know, stranger things have happened. But I liked how they did this to a certain extent because Zaria turning on Sol Ruca has been something that they've been planning for a while. And they've been teasing that for however many months. It was going to happen, and it needed to happen where she would cost her something. I kind of liked how they had her come out with Sol Ruca, and then before the bell really rang, it was just like, nope, fuck you. I don't want you to have a chance to win this belt. Instead of it being a full match, and then Zaria just cheers her on the whole time and then turns on her, because they do that more often than not. And it's like, well, you wouldn't want her to win. Why would you be like helping her? And then just midway through go, no, you know what? I think I am going to turn on my friend. You know? That type of logic is typical in pro wrestling, or the lack thereof for logic. And I like that they started it off with just, nope, tackle, F6. Now JC Jane can pin you. Even better, I like that she came up to JC afterward and said, you owe me, and I want my title match next week. Because that kind of makes it seem like Zaria's been like, I've got an actual strategy here. Fuck my friend, and then I get that title match. And then I can beat the shit out of JC Jane. And of course, she's going to lose, because Sol Ruca is going to come out and cost her or something. But that's the whole point of the triple threat feud. So I like it overall. Things could be a little bit better in some ways, but I'm glad that this is like finally happening. And
I agree. The approach was more logical than, like you say, the typical approach, which is someone is in your corner for 15-20 minutes with every intention of screwing you, not knowing that the match could end in like 5 minutes if someone just gets a flash pin, and then where's your plan go? But I also don't really like the logic of the fact that she did that and then the match happened.
Yeah, the match shouldn't have happened by, like the referee should have been like, no, now she can't really respond.
Yeah, because I know they tried to do something of like Sol Ruca like nodding her head as if she wanted the match to happen. It's like, well, no, that's like if I don't know, I don't know what like an equivalent scenario is, but essentially the referee should be there to stop someone who's just clearly been hurt and injured and is not going to is just walking into a death trap. Like, they should just say, no, this match isn't happening, or we're going to reschedule this match because one of the opponents got taken out of their control.
So you mean to tell me that turn occurred before the match? I thought, just naturally seeing the photos and stuff, that it was a like post-match or whatever.
Well, no, it was when they were doing the announcements of like, you know, the challenger is, you know, so-and-so, and the champion is...
Because if the match had started, it would be an instant DQ.
Yeah.
So they couldn't have the match start, but they needed the match to start to have JC Jane pin her. So that was that's the one bit of inconsistency that I didn't like about it. But other than that, it made more sense for Zaria to take her out beforehand.
They did basically the Money in the Bank thing, but without the added element of it only really makes sense with Money in the Bank because Money in the Bank is an inherent, I do get that title shot when I get to pick. And JC doesn't have the option of being like, no. I get to pick that we do have that match. Even, you know, because Money in the Bank rules are essentially, if the person can stand up, then they're ready to go. And sucks to be you if you're limping or whatever, you're standing up, you're not unconscious, so you're about to get picked off. And, you know, those kind of elements, they could be better. For anybody that was like immediately like, oh my god, change Zaria. Yeah, I changed her. She's listed as heel. Don't worry about it. Let's switch over to a New Japan thing before we do all the AEW stuff. New Japan Wrestling's New Beginning USA event is happening tonight. You got 8 matches on the card. This is happening in Trenton, not too far off from where I'm from. And as such, it's going to be at a different time frame, so it's going to be happening at the same time as SmackDown and all. And the very quick rundown of the card. David Finlay in his last match against Fred Rosser, a.k.a. Darren Young. El Desperado and Kushida against Alec Price and Jordan Oliver. Tomohiro Ishii against Bolton Oleg for the strong openweight title. Ricochet defends the national title from AEW against Ishimori. The world television title is on the line from El Phantasmo against Konosuke Takeshita. The Knockout Brothers, Yuto Ice and Oscar, are facing GOA with the IWGP Tag Team titles on the line. Syuri is defending the IWGP Women's Championship against Athena, and Yota Tsuji is defending the Global Heavyweight Championship against Andrade El Idolo. As a non-New Japan watcher and all the things that go along with that, always want to preface my thoughts with, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but I think in the grand scheme of this, from my outsider's perspective, I could see Andrade winning that global title just to get it away from having a double champion thing. And I don't think any other belts would probably change hands. I don't know, maybe Bolton Oleg, maybe Takeshita, I don't know, but I would assume David Finlay probably loses his last match too. You guys are more knowledgeable about these things. Even if you don't watch them, you still know more about it than I do.
Yeah. The Fred Rosser and David Finlay one, it very much depends. Like, I think Finlay will lose because it's his final match in New Japan, and so you typically go out on your back. But I guess it kind of depends on where he goes, because now there's a lot more speculation he's going to AEW rather than WWE. And it's kind of the rationale is that he doesn't want to go to NXT. Or at least that's the rumor going around, is that he doesn't want to go to NXT, but that's where they want to put him. And so if the offer that he gets from WWE isn't good enough, then he'll go to AEW. And both WWE and AEW seem to have set up at least, not like clear-cut storylines, but at least an avenue in which he can debut for both sides. So it's still up in the air about where he's going.
There's also the idea that, hey, maybe he's just going to stay. That's less likely, but not completely out of the picture.
I still have no idea why the strong openweight championship is a thing, but Tomohiro Ishii has it, and Bolton Oleg is a top level sort of guy, a guy that's definitely going from the upper mid card and potentially will break into the main event at some point. So that could switch hands, but it just depends on what they intend to do with it. But Tomohiro Ishii is like a draw in the US, so they'll probably keep it on him. Ricochet's definitely not dropping the title to Taiji Ishimori because he's got to fight Jack Perry again at some point. Kushida and Desperado against Jordan Oliver and Alex Price doesn't really matter. It's just a fun match for like a young tag team against a more veteran tag team. That Phantasmo Takeshita match has all the makings of a 15-minute draw. So I'm going to stick my neck out and say no one wins that match. They're going to draw because of the time limit, because they're not going to. Because I don't think Tony Khan wants Takeshita to be beaten by El Phantasmo, and I don't think they want the title on Takeshita because it's a bit beneath him. Knockout Brothers will obviously retain the tag titles. Shuri will almost certainly retain the IWGP Women's Championship, and will probably parlay into a Shuri getting a title shot against Athena for the Ring of Honor title, which Athena will win. So they'll just trade off in that regard. And then, yeah, the biggest talking point is probably the Global Heavyweight Championship match, because it could very much go either way. It would seem a little odd to just, 2 months after Tsuji wins both titles and talks about how he's going to defend both of them, and the way that he envisions it about the global title is for international opponents or international shows, where he defends it in the US against primarily AEW talent, but just anybody that's not a New Japan talent, and then the actual world title, which he will only defend in New Japan against New Japan contracted talent. So it'd be odd if he lost it the first time, but Andrade is super over right now, and he's getting like a good showing both in New Japan, in AEW, and in other promotions that he's working as well. So it would not in any way surprise me if they decide to just hot shot the title onto him and have Tsuji just be a one title holder.
Yeah, I'm watching significantly less than Callum, but I think there's a good chance Andrade could win because he is super over right now. Perhaps the most he's ever been. And, you know, as much as I like that they've established these separations of the global title and the IWGP World title, I'd still want to see every double champion, regardless of brand, regardless of whatever, lose the double champion status. I've had it, so I'm all for Andrade winning. Yeah, I think the thing that stands out to me here is, wow, this is like AEW meets New Japan Forbidden Door mini. You know what I mean? Like, this is all pretty much AEW versus New Japan, and I kind of like that. I don't think Athena will win, and I think the idea that Callum lays out works perfectly. I am probably most excited to see what happens in that Takeshita match because he's another one that I just always like to see holding a title. But I do agree with Callum. I don't think he'll win this one.
Well, we'll find out what happens later on tonight. And of course, that means we're rolling on to the AEW side of things now. Dynamite had itself a few pretty important things happening on that show, too. Quick rundown of the generic things, just like I did with the other things. Moxley beat El Clone. Swerve Strickland had a promo about how he is just like, yeah, I kind of like being an asshole. That's basically what it was. Which, yeah, hey, I don't blame him.
That immediately became your favorite wrestler, huh?
Gabe Kidd beat Orange Cassidy. I like the little thing that Orange Cassidy is looking for Roderick Strong, and he's offering a $15 gift card.
I think this was an interesting result because Orange Cassidy doesn't lose often, and Gabe Kidd is still kind of in this in-between limbo period about whether he's actually in AEW or whether he's in New Japan or whether he's in both. So I think it's quite interesting that that's a guy they had beat Cassidy one-on-one in pretty clean fashion. Obviously, he had got the things in the eyes, which allowed him to hit the pole driver, but it's still a fairly clean win for a heel.
Yeah, I think Gabe Kidd is absolutely just sticking with AEW. And I like what they've got going on with him and Connors as a team.
It seems like they're invested in them, and wouldn't shock me if they really want to just be like, let's kind of hitch our wagon to a guy like a Gabe Kidd. Darby Allin returned, made the save. I know that there's been a story going around this week about him getting kicked out of an Uber car
for doing an interview.
Something, but I don't know, kind of just came across fake to me.
From what I saw, he was like kicked out for doing an interview, not using headphones, which was either real or fake. I just think it's funny.
I think it's fake. I don't know. Kevin Knight beat Mansoor. This Jet Speed and Hangman trio, it's not a trio.
Brother, everything involving Hangman right now, it feels so off. And it's crazy to me how, and yeah, I know everybody's not chronically online, but it's crazy how he's lost like all his momentum and all the goodwill he had because of recent decisions he's made. And it just, at least the people I watch it with, The Miz might as well be on TV lately with the way it's just like Hangman lost the thing that makes Hangman special, which is people genuinely believing he's the guy. But yeah, but again, it goes back to my other point of stop doing this thing where you put belts on people who are going after other belts. Let the trios titles just be a random fun thing. They just never do that.
They don't even just interact, the three of them. It's Jet Speed are holding the trios titles, and they happen to have Paige as their third guy, but they don't do anything with them. And it's like the promo afterward and all, like these past couple episodes has been primarily Jet Speed being like, hey, Adam Page, man, like, you're cool with us. We'll see you in another segment. I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they defended the title week against, or on the Collision on Saturday against a team. So, which they did.
Oh, did they?
Yes.
Well, you mean like pre-taped, or did they just?
They defended it against the
Oh,
Demand.
that's right.
The Demand match, yeah. But it just doesn't strike me as like. It's almost like it's a partnership by convenience, but it's inconvenient. Like, okay, I gotta do that match, so now we can hang out. And then I don't want to be a part of a team beyond that. Like, they're only getting they're work friends as opposed to a trio thing. And I don't like that dynamic. I rather would have it be like, Demand actually all hang around together and like, I don't know, maybe have like, you're gonna do a segment where MJF does this whole thing and then multiple people stop MJF from leaving when he's got the fake coin. I would think the first two people that should come out for that should be the people that are the tag team champions alongside Hangman.
Yeah, I would agree.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at that point. No.
That's where I get the whole, like, they don't really seem like they're a trio. They seem like they're a duo and then another guy who pops up every once in a while to be a part of them. But like they could use a good, one segment per week or whatever of just like a quick backstage, like, yeah, they're all hanging out and hey, I'm going to go do that thing. Good luck in your match against Mansoor. I don't know. Something like that.
What? To be fair, I think they are doing that once per week. It's just on Collision most of the time. And you're not seeing that. So it's like, I feel like
that could be fair.
There's a lot. There's a lot. Yeah, that's like there's a lot of stuff going on in AEW right now, building up towards like Revolution and such. So I don't think that they are that they can't devote as much time to the trios thing. Not as a defense for it, but I also I'm not putting too much stock into it because I think it's a fairly short-term title reign before it switches to an actual more established trios team. So it's just a marriage of convenience for now until probably post-Revolution when they lose it.
Depending on who they want to go with, I don't think that they're going to be holding those belts super duper long. But
yeah, so I'm kind of okay with it being a bit more of a, a bunch of, as you say, co-workers as opposed to like an actual trio for a little while.
But it all could depend on what's happening with this whole stipulation, because the Texas Death Match is what's going to happen at Revolution. It was proposed that they flip a coin. One could be a Texas Death Match, and one could be a one-way, no DQ match of MJF can do whatever he wants. He doesn't get disqualified, but if Hangman does anything, he can get disqualified. And, of course, it was a trick coin. They spotted that. Tony Khan rules that it's a Texas Death Match. They did seem to kind of dance around that whole stipulation of like not challenging for the title anymore, even though they did at least address it at the beginning of it with Paige saying, with MJF saying that Paige would be the second guy to lose the right to do that. So I'm assuming that is still on for that, but all the graphics haven't mentioned it, and like all the promotional material that I had seen, like the official promotional material and all, just focused on it being a Texas Death Match and didn't say that. So I don't know, maybe they might be walking that back a little bit, or just didn't realize that they're not, reiterating that that's still part of it. I still don't like that idea. We'll address that whenever we see whatever the results are, but I don't know, this trick coin thing, they basically did the same segment as they did the last week, except for the trick coin thing. Getting an extra week out of it, I don't particularly love it. I don't hate it. It's not like it's like terrible. It's just a matter of like, I don't know. I don't like the dawdling in AEW or in WWE. You know, how many times do I complain about WWE being like, AJ Lee cuts the same promo she did last week and we just got 2 weeks out of it. Haha, fuck you. We didn't have to do any of our work. I do kind of feel like this is a little bit of the same sort of thing. Like MJF is like, let me think about it, and then tries to come up with another thing. It's slightly better than what WWE does, because at least AEW, this was like, let me try to think of a plan to make it better for myself instead of just let me think about it and then we'll just cut the same promo and it'll be nothing. So I'll give them credit there. But we ended up in the same exact spot. So
I mean, I kind of question what else they were going to do. Like, what else that would you kind of expect in terms of they've got like 3 weeks still until the pay-per-view happens. They've got to fill their time sometime. That's the reason why they wanted to choose to make Hangman the number one contender at Grand Slam to give that show another big match to like make it feel like a mini pay-per-view. And so you have to fill that time. And as I say, I'm not saying it's the most inspired thing in the world, but like, you know, they have to. They can't just like say, oh, the match is going to happen and it's going to be a Texas Death match last week, and then just not be on TV for the next, or just having random. Or it would it be any better just them having just random matches with other people between now and then?
I think I probably would have gone with MJF gets 2 people and he says, before you have a chance at taking my title, I want to take away those trios titles from you. I don't even want you to be a champion heading into that. And then probably would have had at least one trios match. And then it's kind of like 2 birds, you know?
Well, that could be something that happens in next week or the week after still, because you still have 3 weeks that they have to fill with things to do now that they've done this segment. So, you know, I think that having watched this segment and having like, as I will probably be more clarified, or I'll have a more crystal opinion as opposed to when it actually gets to Revolution. But I'm more convinced both that this segment convinced me both more that Hangman's not going to win and the stipulation is going to happen, and also I'm more convinced by the fact that I think my thing about it not being a legally binding thing is going to happen as well. And I know me and Tony will constantly disagree on it, but I still don't think that's a bad thing.
Any thoughts before we move on, Rob?
Yeah, I don't love the story, but I think if it's just being done in the sense of like I said, if he's behind the scenes, I remember this is the guy who supposedly was like, no, Ospreay should win the Owen Hart tournament. So if he's just behind the scenes, like, look, I won it twice, I got 2 huge moments, I don't think I'm topping that, then fuck it. Then I guess that's fine. Right now, we are in a position where the roster is stacked enough that it doesn't matter. I don't know if that will always be the case, but who knows how long Hangman's planning on wrestling anyway.
Ain't shit, for all we know. Maybe he's like, I'm gonna pack it in. You know?
That's what I'm saying. Like, we've gotten through 3 major retirements in the last 2 months, and even I saw an interview with Finn Balor being like, I got like 2 more years. So
Cody Rhodes saying the next contract I sign is going to be my last one.
Also, we're in a different landscape now as well, where like when it happened with the Cody thing, like that when he made the decision not to challenge the title anymore, there wasn't actually any other title. Like the TNT title hadn't been invented yet.
That's true. There's like 15 titles.
Yeah, so the only titles that existed were the tag title, the women's title, and the world title. Now there is other championships that Hangman could have stories with, and I know obviously the argument is that like there are too many titles, and there are too many titles, but it still means that even if there were 2 mid-card titles, there would still be stuff for Hangman to do in between that. So there's at least a bit more potential for him to be a character outside of the world title picture.
Let's switch over to another title thing. Babe's Wrath against Megabad ends in a DQ, and it ends in a DQ because Penelope Ford got injured during that. It seems like she has a sprained ankle, according to some reports, so she might not be out for like a sustained, super long amount of time. But man, not a great track record when it comes to Penelope Ford with injuries and things offsetting her career and all. And for a little bit there, it felt like it was just like, God damn, like she just came back and then now she gets an injury again, like probably during a time when she might have even have won the titles. I don't know what the plan originally was or not, but if that is the plan, they're going to have to wait a little bit.
There's a few
been
names right now. Go ahead, Callum.
Okay. I think there's a ton of discourse that's happened from the back of this match, which I feel like is a little bit overblown. It's the because the whole injury happens when Penelope goes for a moonsault to the outside, and Harley and Willow are supposed to catch her, but Harley in particular seems to move out of the way, meaning that she doesn't fully catch her, and so that could lead to the ankle being twisted or sprained, and resulting in them having to do this super weird DQ. When I watched the DQ, I just went, "Oh, she's clearly badly hurt," because there's no way they would do a finish like this in any other circumstance. It's not how AEW operate. So yeah, I think that while there is definitely blame to be directed at Harley and Willow, I think mainly on Harley's side as well, because they moved out of the way of the moonsault when, I've complained in the past before about The Miz is perennially known for not catching people when they dive to the outside. And wrestling is all about safety, as weird as it sounds, when they're all just doing really high impact moves to each other. But you're there to make sure that the other person doesn't get hurt. And if you aren't fulfilling that part of the bargain, then that is problematic. But I don't think that it's indicative of a serious issue in AEW's women's division that they are being overpushed or making to do spots or things along those lines that they're not prepared for. I think it can just be one of those things that happens. And as I think that injuries do happen on all sides. If you're going to do high risk maneuvers like this, then there's always a possibility. But the more often or not, the injuries that we actually see are just somebody tripping while running the ropes, or something really, really innocuous like that as well. Everything is potentially dangerous. So yeah, I don't think it required the serious amount of discourse like the day or two online where people were just constantly bashing Harley or even criticizing Penelope Ford for doing a moonsault to the outside in the first place. It's we know what the I guess the environment of pro wrestling is these days. This is what people do regularly, on all sides. They do these sort of spots now because that's what people expect. So yeah, it was just one of those unfortunate things. I don't think it required as heavy a scrutiny as it was given.
Yeah, it's just sad, man. I'm hoping that she just sprained her ankle, and it's not a Chelsea Green situation where did she sprain her ankle? Did she break it? Penelope Ford at one point, and I'm going all the way back 6 years ago, was a name that was looked at, fondly in this company, and now it's she seems to get hurt a lot, and shit happens. Bronson Reed got hurt again right before the chance to finally have a Mania moment. It's never a good time to get hurt. It just it sucks to see it happen when it happens to somebody so frequently.
Yeah, hopefully they, everything bounces back from this and stuff. Just one of those situations that that sucks. And then you're going to have to pivot one way or another. Brody King beat Mark Davis, put out a challenge for Swerve Strickland. Bandito put out a challenge for Andrade to answer. And put out a challenge for anybody, and Andrade answered, not specifically called out Andrade. But those two matches seem like they're happening at Revolution, so they should be fun. And we got Proto Okada on Collision. Okada continuing to do the whole "you're my best friend" Kyle Fletcher, and you understand how awesome it is to be a champion like I do, not like Takeshi. I found that feud funny.
The weird bratty brother feud between Okada and Takeshita's is very funny. And I'm surprised that they're just haven't gotten in the ring yet. But I guess we'll get there. But it is at least fun TV.
They did get in the ring at World's End.
Oh, that's right. They did. That's right. 'Cause I was expecting it to be the blow off, but he used the screwdriver, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Takeshi's got to get his win back.
The Brody King, Mark Davis, again, nice Ming Guy match. I always like a match that ends in just a clothesline. Because like you should always try and protect sort of like some basic moves to make them feel like they're that they can finish a match like that. And yeah, Bandito versus Andrade, that should be a great match considering the form those two have both been in recently.
And then you got that Mile High Madness match. Jack Perry gets another chance at that Ricochet belt again, it seems, coming out of this. Just keep that going. But that was fun. The match.
Yeah, it was like it was a mini Anarchy in the Arena match.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like it was some fun spots. It was nice to see the Rascals are getting featured quite a lot after signing, so that's good to see that they're at least initially getting some good appearances in high profile matches. And they've already won a match against FTR as well, which means that they'll be whoever wins that tag title match at Revolution, they'll probably be next in line for the titles. And yeah, I think having Jack Perry get the victory is good to have a rematch. I think there's probably a good chance Perry wins that title from Ricochet because I don't think the national title is one that should be held by someone for a super long time. And Ricochet's held it for a while already, so I don't see any harm in passing the belt on to Perry at this point.
So that's all the hot takes that I got. I'm seeing nothing really else going on other than the bloodline seems to be very much annoyed that people don't absolutely love everything that they do. So it's like more of like Jacob Fatu and Jey Uso and all being like, stop hating things. Stop, just love everything, please.
Well, hold on. I need you to specifically say what you just read that made you say that.
Well, Jacob Fatu's been on something recently where he was complaining about people complaining about Jey Uso's entrance and stuff. I don't have that up specifically right now, but I have a thing about Jay on ESPN First Take where he says, man, just keep watching your TV screen, open your laptop up, put your iPad up, iPhone out. I'll be on there somewhere. Blah, 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 blah. He's listening all the things that he's done. Stay blessed, man. Stop hating, man. Come to one of these shows. You might change your vibes. You feel me? It all seems very much everybody who's complaining about the entrance and is tired of it. Can you just stop and can you just like it? Because that's basically what Jacob Fatu said. Like, y'all need to stop disliking this.
Speaking of entrances, have you guys seen Wendy Chu's new entrance?
No.
On Evolve.
Evolve?
Yeah.
I skipped it this week. Was there anything different than what it's been?
It's El Clon's entrance. Like, pretty much to a T, it is El Clon's entrance to, and like, yeah, I just thought that was funny to just like watch that and just like, oh, that's pretty. It's like it's not like 100% the same, but she's doing the hologram sign, like the El Clon does, where he does it like the C instead, and she's doing like a kind of like a lucha dive into the ring as well. So I thought, oh, that's interesting.
Hey, you know, you can get away with stuff when people aren't watching TV.
Yeah, he's clearly been quite influential in his short time on AEW already.
Because Wendy Chu, I have seen recent like promos. She's just full blown wrestler now, right? Like she's just
yeah.
I'm a wrestler. That's the deal.
Yeah, she's not the gimmick anymore about being like
without being sleepy or being a mute
nightmare demon or anything like that. Nah, she's just Wendy, which like, you know, I mean, at this point she's been all sorts of other things Like,
And
sure,
it's never worked, so yeah.
yeah,
might as well
just let her be
go.
Wendy, and
Yeah, just let her be
Yeah,
wrestler.
she's working with the young talent on Evolve. That's fine.
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, just as another bit of good news, Nick Wayne's back as well. He
Oh, nice.
wrestled on Ring of Honor this week. Defended.
I wanted to bring up.
Didn't
Ring of
defend the
Honor.
television title, but had a premium
Wanted
bright
to bring
match.
up Ring of Honor as well because they're filming in a new solo Ring of Honor taping this weekend in
They're doing
Jacksonville.
seemingly studio wrestling potentially.
Yeah, and I would rather than be doing it at the one that NWA does it, which is 20 minutes from my house. But I am all for Ring of Honor going back to solo tapings. I'm all for it being a studio show. I'm all for the idea that it becomes its own thing. So I'm stoked on that. Like, that's fantastic.
I'd be totally down for it to be a studio show in the same vein that NWA Power was when it came back initially. Like, because I thought those initial shows for the first few months of NWA Power was actually quite refreshing because we don't see those sort of studio shows anymore. And the big issue with Ring of Honor, as it always will be, is how much they devote to actually week to week creative, as opposed to just putting together banger pay-per-view cards, which they can do and they typically do. But yeah, they need to put more focus onto getting characters over and getting stories told. And I think studio wrestling can really help with that because much of that is, if you do it correctly, a lot of that is very, very promo driven. So that should, in theory, help get people in a more settled environment rather than just doing a taping in front of a worn out crowd that have been watching either whatever AEW show has taken place before or after it. They can actually focus and be a bit more, okay, this is what we're going to do over the next 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks that we're going to tape here, however long they're going to do. And actually tell more coherent stories going into the pay-per-views.
And I like this. And if you're not going to use Athena on TV and you're going to make her the focal point of Ring of Honor, make Ring of Honor its own show, I would say, honestly, now is the time for Chris Hero to become an on-air authority in Ring of Honor. Make him the commissioner or whatever. Give that show some structure. Give it something different than AEW has. Don't make him like a heel authority or even a babyface authority where people are fighting with him. Just make him, I have a long history here. I'm, excited to be the guy promoting Ring of Honor. If you're not going to do that with him, you got Daniels there. You got Danielson. You know what I mean? Like, you have people who can do this. I'd like to see this show become its own thing, and I'm very excited for the studio tapings.
I have no plans on watching it, but that's because there's too much fucking wrestling as it is. And,
See, what the amazing thing is, Tony? Now that I'm not watching almost anything, I cannot agree with that sentiment. I'm like, yeah, sure, there might be too much wrestling as it is, but I haven't seen any of it. So I'm actually kind of like, I kind of miss watching some wrestling. Maybe I will check out Ring of Honor.
Good for you. I'm not going to be watching, the only reason I even watch Evolve at this point is because I'm doing coverage. But I wouldn't watch Evolve if that were the case too. And,
We're already not watching Collision.
Yeah. I mean, like we said, there's a part of me that's just sort of, I'm curious if I were to have some completely different job. DC calls me up. Well, maybe not DC at this point since they're going to be all fucking MAGA. But Marvel calls me up and they're like, yo, Spider-Man Blueprint. I'd be like, all right, I don't know how, if any, WWE or AEW I'd be watching. But, if you want to make sure that happens, I don't know why you would want to make sure that I would not be doing the show that you're watching right now. But hey, Blueprint Project, you can share your support on things like the Power Rangers one and Batman Nighttime Story, always show your support for those things. But yeah, that's about it, I think, as far as this round of hot tags is concerned. And of course, the next thing you're going to be hearing from us is going to be the post show immediately following the Elimination Chamber event that is happening tomorrow. So we'll do the usual recap of that, and you'll see me talk about what's happening on there and the reaction side of things. Next week is going to be, of course, another round of the hot tags as per usual, but it's already going to be predictions for Vengeance Day. And then the week after that, it's predictions for the AEW Revolution event. And then the week after that, we finally got a blank week, or at least we currently have a blank week. I don't know if that's going to change. But the that reminds me that I do have to switch up the I didn't add the stuff for Stand and Deliver. I have to add that into my list of my notes because now that's not going to be lumped in with Mania week. So keep in mind the Elimination Chamber stuff and everything else that we've talked about with the Discord and this marketplace and all the Linktree stuff that I always mention. Go to anthonymango.com or amangotree.com and you'll find all the links to the Smark Moment and Fanboys Anonymous and Tony Mango related stuff. Follow me there and follow Robin Callum too.
Yep, you can follow me everywhere at Dude Felice, and you can check out Insider Gaming if you so wish to see news pieces with my name on it, and check out what accounts are going on.
You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky with Meister14. Check out the Power Rankings, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances over on smarkoutmoment.com. And while you're over there, head on over to the Fantasy League, also at WWEFantasyLeague.com, to see how our rosters are performing as we head towards Elimination Chamber, where some potential big points can be scored.
And then naturally, we always want to know what you guys have to say about other things we're talking about. So as a reminder, drop your comments below and tell us what you think about all these topics and more. And we will see you next time around with the next episode with probably the NXT Vengeance Day predictions. Not entirely 100% for sure, but it's most likely going to be that. So check out that Darkcast. Check out anything else that's going on. Go back and listen to some older episodes or something. Don't hold me to my opinions for them. I'm sure that they're wrong in many capacities, but that'll do in episode 743 for now. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next time. Adios for now, though. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.